Catherine, Dean Srivastav, Jay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all begin by blaming Jay for not telling me about the dress code, the purple dress code. So, in fact, I have dressed for an event that is happening later in the day. It's a startup event. It's called the Entrepreneurship World Cup, where the dress code is bright and flashy. So, I'm more prepared for that event. But had you told me that purple is the dress code, I could have picked some bright and flashy purple shirt. But nevertheless, greetings to all of you. In fact, before we started this session, we had a small sit-down meeting a while ago where we were discussing how would we summarize the discussions today, how will we present our report. So we have found the answer. If you give us your speech, that is an excellent summary for today. But we all know that the reason for having this session, this debate, this discussion rather, is in the backdrop of the determination of the national government to introduce the private data protection law. As all of you would know, the bill has already been introduced. The draft bill has already been prepared. It has been introduced in the parliament and it is slated to be introduced in this budget session. The Aadhaar bill and the private data protection bill, both have been slated for the current budget session. Aadhaar bill was already discussed and cleared the other day. And in a matter of a few weeks, perhaps, the data protection bill will also come up. So this is a very timely confluence when we have gathered some of the senior most industry leaders, civil society representatives, startup representatives, people who have international experience to think about all the issues involved. But at the same time, we should also be very realistic and pragmatic. There are certain people who feel that this kind of thing is completely unnecessary. But if you look at the events which have happened in the recent past in this country, the growing public opinion, the public sentiment is towards these kind of regulations. For example, in this country, many cases of fake news with very, very adverse consequences, including loss of lives, have happened. Then when we had our national elections some months ago, we also saw a very major breach in which social profile data of millions of Indian citizens was passed on to a British company called Cambridge Analytica, and they used it in some other nefarious kind of ways. So these events are too recent and have too much of ramifications at the national level, at the state level, at the governance level to be ignored. So if we have that kind of a feeling that such a bill should not come, such a law should not come at all, then we are living in a fool's paradise. So the law is bound to come, but in which way it comes, how does it protect everyone's interest? And Kathy has rightly identified a number of issues. But at the same time, we also need to learn from international experience. Europe already have their GDPR. It is up and running for the last couple of years. China has an absolute closed door kind of regulations. But many people point out that none of these, the European economy or the Chinese economy, is worse off because of having these kind of regulations. In fact, China's case is showcased in a completely different way. People mention that because China has closed everything else, it has given an opportunity for local entrepreneurs to rise. And we all know there are huge, enormous Chinese giants who have now taken over the digital economy of that country. And similarly, in Europe as well, of course, I need to also educate myself a bit more on the European experience. But from the preliminary information that I have by attending these kind of seminars or reading some newspaper reports is that barring certain compliance requirements, which may appear cumbersome to some people, rest of it is business as usual. No company's interests have been affected in any adverse way, in any serious way. So we need to actually learn from these global experiences and also see what are the issues that we need to nuance a bit more in the Indian context. Of course, I fully agree with what Kathy said, that the new digital economy is being driven to a large extent by entrepreneurs, by startups. Hyderabad, as all of us know, is one of such cities which has a very vibrant and dynamic startup culture. And while meeting compliance requirements for a large company like a Google or a Facebook may be easy, but for a startup to sign hundreds and thousands of papers and be up to date with compliance will be very, very taxing, very burdensome. So definitely some of these issues need to be rethought or reconsidered in the draft bill. At the same time, localization, of course, I fully agree again with Kathy when she says that it is not really uh, a guarantee of perfect protection if the data is stored within your country, as long as it is stored somewhere where there are strong laws and adequate laws. But there is a flip side to this argument. The flip side is that if the localization laws are made very stringent and very tight, it will give rise to again a good movement towards creating more and more data centers. And that is something which we are seeing in the last few months. Anticipating that this localization law will be introduced, we ourselves in Hyderabad have been receiving queries and very serious investors' interest in creating data centers here. And as we speak, there are at least 3 to 4 major players who have been talking to us, who are seeking support and looking at land and other government infrastructure support to create their large data centers here. So while there are obvious concerns on some of these issues, but if we have to live with them in case we are not able to influence to a great deal what eventually becomes the law, becomes the act, then we should also look at the opportunities which this kind of a law presents before us, and just learn to live with it and go on. So as I said, this particular session today has tremendous value for us. We are at the right moment in time to influence the outcome of the national bill, which is going to be debated and discussed in Parliament soon. While I can't foresee what the future will entail, but many people have kind of indicated to us that the bill will most likely be referred to a select committee. And there is some more time before the bill actually becomes act, but we do not know, because in the national government, again, as we know, the ruling party has a very huge and overwhelming majority. So if they refuse to let it go to a select committee, then perhaps they may convert it into an act right away. But hopefully there will be opportunities for more discussion and much more informed discussion on these matters. So as Jay and Kathy mentioned, the interest of our government is definitely to ensure that the digital economy is not met with any roadblocks, not met with any factors which slow down our rapid growth. As Kathy mentioned, we have become the best performing state in terms of creating IT products, IT services, exporting these products and services, employing a new set of manpower in the IT sector. The year-on-year growth that we are showing is the best in the country. While admittedly, in terms of the size, Bangalore's industry is much bigger. But in terms of growth, we have shown much better performance than any other comparable Indian city over the last 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row now. So nothing which will come in the way of this growth will be acceptable to us. But at the same time, laws also present challenges and present opportunities. So let us look at both sides of the picture. So as I said, hopefully by the end of the day, we will have lots of insights and wisdom from people who are present in the room. I would particularly like to know the international experience and what India can learn from that international experience. And let us not dismiss China as a kind of a very stray case or an outlier case, because there are good things which are happening in China as well because of their tight laws. So let us keep our sensibilities in a very balanced way and prepare a set of recommendations which will be more practical, relevant, and hopefully which will be implemented in the near future. So once again, warm welcome to all of you to Hyderabad, and let us have very open, productive, and very practical set of discussions. Thank you very much.